The following is a presentation of the Pro Wrestling Report, TV and radio. Informative, entertaining, and real since 1998. Live from the PWR studios in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, this is the Pro Wrestling Report Post Show on Blog Talk Radio with your host, Damian Nelson.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Post Show here from the Pro Wrestling Report. We're live right after TNA Slammiversary on Sunday, June 12th, 2011. Thank you so much for joining us wherever you may be all over the world. We're going to be taking your phone calls tonight in just a few minutes about TNA Slammiversary, an eventful pay-per-view where we saw new champions crowned and a new number one contender and some excellent wrestling matchups. Damian Nelson here, coming to you from the PWR studios, soon to be joined by David Octavius and Tiberius, the alleged Hall of Famer hero. And we'll take your call at 347-996-5278. Again, that's 347-996-5278 all night long. The conversation has been going on in the chat room here on Blog Talk Radio, and right now the chat dominated not by TNA Slammiversary, but the Dallas Mavericks win of the NBA Finals and the NBA Championship. Congratulations obviously go out to the Dallas Mavericks. I believe their first NBA championship. Excuse me for that slip up there. But we are going to be taking your phone calls and an eventful pay-per-view tonight, to say the very least. Things happening all over the place, but the most important thing I would have to say would be the brand new TNA World Heavyweight Champion. Congratulations to Ken Anderson, who is now a two-time TNA World Heavyweight Champion. Joined now by David Hero here on the Post Show. David, TNA Slammiversary is in the books, and Ken Anderson is the new TNA World Champion.
All is good in the world, especially if you're a super friend. Isn't that right, Damian Nelson?
Hey, look, I'll congratulate you and your little Mickey Mouse, Mighty Mouse friends for having a temporary,
you know what? What's the
victory.
Score right now? What's the score right now?
Score right now is Super Friends at 670 to Nelson Family 610. So it's a 60-point game.
Hey, that's a big week. It's a big night. Super Friends. Yes. Ken Anderson, your new world champion. You know what? Good for Ken. You know what? Ken and Sting, I think that may have been Sting's best match he's had in quite a long time.
Sting certainly came to play tonight at the pay-per-view, and that matchup, David Hero, the finish of that match is getting a lot of discussion. I thought it was spectacular because of the play on what happened there. You had Eric Bischoff come down to the ring, and seemingly he was going to try to get in Sting's way. Well, ultimately he did, because as his son, referee Jackson James, counted one, Bischoff jumps in the ring, counts two, all while Sting's back is turned. Then James counts what he thought was two, but what Sting thought was three, causing confusion, which ultimately led to Ken Anderson pinning Sting after getting a second mic check and becoming the new champion.
Yeah, you know what? The finish was a little suspect, but let's just look at how the whole match went. I mean, both guys were in a fight. You could tell that they didn't like each other. Yeah, it would have been. You know what? But it would have been nice if it would have been a little bit of a cleaner pinfall. But let's not forget, Ken's kind of been like the tweener heel. Okay, so you had to figure he wasn't going to beat him clean in the first place. There was going to be some type of screw job somewhere along the line, and Eric Bischoff got involved. And what I thought was interesting was that Bischoff did not celebrate with Ken after the match. He just left. Right. So maybe Ken is not siding himself with Hogan and Bischoff yet, which may change now that Ken will be defending this title against Kurt Angle next.
As Kurt Angle is the number one contender. Before we get to that matchup, David Hero, lots of comments on Twitter. Our Twitter name at PWR Show. And for many of you who are using the hashtag PWR Now, which we look for during all live wrestling events, we had a lot of conversation and a lot of you mentioning the victory of Mr. Anderson and him being the new TNA World Heavyweight Champion. Our DJ70 username on Twitter saying, just simply put, Mr. Anderson, TNA Champ. Rainier911 saying, congrats to Mr. Anderson. New Era 760 saying, new champion Anderson. Wish it could have been clean, though, without Bischoff. good match, 7.5 out of 10. Zakanoff saying Anderson wins. Yes, assholes rejoice. And so many people talking about that matchup. A good match, one where after a short reign, David Hero, initially for Ken Anderson as TNA World Champion, this time it looks like we've got a long-term plan because Eric Bischoff's been talking a long time about everything we're seeing now is laser-focused on Bound for Glory in October, and one has to think that a program with Ken Anderson and Kurt Angle is going to entertain for a few months.
Well, yeah, I mean, what they need to do now is give Ken some steam and let him beat, now he beat Sting, let him go over on Kurt Angle, let him be built up as a strong TNA World Champion. So then his match, if he makes it that far to Bound for Glory, maybe against Crimson, where then it really means something.
Crimson, the man. How do I get Crimson on my draft roster?
Well, why don't you, talk to Kaz and try to collude, do some more collusional activity.
I thought maybe since you're in the lead, you'd stop whining for once. Your whining's been really pathetic over the last several months about this draft. I want to say one thing, though. Major announcement, David Hero, tonight. Right now at PWRshow.com, all the details on how you, out there in the listening universe, can join the PWR draft. A new PWR fan draft has been announced at PWRshow.com. Head on over and check it out, and don't miss your opportunity to be a part
Wait
of the
a minute.
fantasy draft, the fan version of the fantasy draft.
Now it's not just you. Now it's all these fans I got to compete with.
Oh, they're not competing against us. They're competing against each other, and the winner gets a huge cash prize. The PWR Fan Fantasy Draft, available right now at PWRshow.com.
There's only one place to get the latest from pro wrestling, including the only place to get 100% verified wrestling news. PWRshow.com. PWRshow.com, where you'll never find pop-ups or misleading headlines. Watch or listen to all of our latest TV and radio broadcasts on demand. And get caught up on wrestling news between episodes. PWRshow.com is the cleanest, friendliest, and most fan-friendly source for wrestling news on the web.
And as we said, you can hop on over to PWRshow.com right now and join and sign up and find out all the details on how you could submit your roster picks and be a part of the first season of the Pro Wrestling Report Fan Fantasy Draft. And David Hero, I got to say, I'm not surprised that you have a problem with me being the nice guy around here, welcoming the Pro Wrestling Report viewing and listening audience to be a part of this draft. I'm not surprised that you have a problem with that.
Well, I don't have a problem. It's just like, let me just beat you first, and then we can invite the rest of them,
Continuing talking about TNA Slammiversary on pay-per-view. Some other things happening tonight, and I guess we go in the order of importance in these matchups, and we're going backwards to forwards. AJ Styles versus Bully Ray. David Hero, these two men, as we thought they would this past week on PWR Primetime TV, these two men delivered. They delivered in that last man standing matchup. AJ Styles expected to, but what many people, I think, might have been surprised by is how much Bully Ray can bring it. And Bully Ray has really been an important part of TNA wrestling for the last few weeks and the last few nights. The last few pay-per-views. And tonight, I think, he finally broke through with a lot of the fans.
Yeah, he's improved every week. I mean, when he first became a singles wrestler, there were a lot of groans, especially by me, like, oh, my God, Bully Ray. You know what, I don't want to see him, blah, blah, blah. But, wow, he has turned it up a notch. He's gotten himself in great shape. And you know what? Being the strong heel ring general that he's been lately, he's had some pretty solid matches. When we talked about Be the Booker, we mentioned that this could be the sleeper steel, match of the night, and they really delivered. I mean, I thought both guys worked extremely hard, and the finish I thought was brilliant.
Brilliant? A lot of people not happy about that finish, David Hero. Why do you think it was brilliant?
Here's why. Because fine, let AJ shine and get all of his big spots in and, make the big comeback and make it seem like he's going to beat Bully Ray at his own game. And then what happens to Bully Ray? Where does AJ go after that? these two have good ring chemistry. Now Bully Ray won his match. Well, now AJ Styles can challenge Bully Ray to AJ Styles to the match, and he can win there. You know, we need to have some of these storylines go a little bit longer just so they can try to help elevate and build the characters. Right now, there is no other spot for AJ Styles in TNA than in a program with Bully Ray. I mean, if you think about it, you know, the world title now is going to be Ken Anderson and Kurt Angle for a little while. Where else is AJ going to go? There's no other top heel for him to have a feud with right now. It makes sense. It really does.
A couple of comments on Twitter, and remember, you can follow us on Twitter. More information on that in a minute. But a couple of comments about that matchup, AJ Styles versus Bully Ray. Chill Mascara saying AJ Styles versus Bully Ray will have a long feud. This is far from over. So contrary to what you said, David Hero also saying TNA Match of the Year. Jesse Geyser 6 repeating that comment. Actually had sent that out originally, by the way. Discorator Dave saying AJ Styles just pulled a Shane McMahon, reference to that spot where he dropped that elbow or forearm off the top of the trussing, the stage trussing from the Impact Zone, or the Impact Wrestling Zone. Hey, David Hero, by the way, I got to say, tonight, okay, so on the screen all night we're looking at TNA Slammiversary, the pay-per-view intros, TNA Slammiversary. There's been all this controversy. Is it TNA? Is it Impact Wrestling? Nobody said TNA all night. It was all Impact Wrestling, and they had Impact Wrestling logos all over the place. It's minor, but it's so huge for the company to define themselves properly and not continue to contradict themselves on each broadcast. I think they still have some commitments with the pay-per-views, by the way, to utilize the TNA name. It's not that simple. And remember, WWE did it much smoother when they changed from WWF, when they got the F out, if you will, and changed to WWE. TNA with not as many resources, but something as simple as calling it the same thing consistently, seemingly, should be there.
But let's not forget who we're talking about. We're talking about TNA Wrestling. I mean,
what are you? Are you a TNA hater too? Nothing they do is right. All they can do is wrong.
No, I never said that. But you know, nothing has ever been seamless with them. There's always been a hiccup along the way somewhere. But you know what? At least we're making, you know, they're bringing it to our attention about calling it Impact Wrestling. I mean, it's slowly going in the right direction, and they proved it tonight. Watching the pay-per-view with senior intern Cal, he even looked at me and said, you know what, this is a pretty good pay-per-view tonight. I didn't doze off once. It's a good night.
Follow us on Twitter for breaking news, live wrestling chat, and pure hilarity. Head over to twitter.com/PWR Show and be part of the conversation.
A lot going on this pay-per-view tonight. An excellent matchup, I thought, between AJ Styles and Bully Ray. One that had a great build, a great story, and a great delivery, and I'm intrigued to see what happens next between those competitors. David Hero, one would say that the highlights of the first hour or 2 hours of this pay-per-view were few and far between, but one of them is the continued undefeated streak of Crimson, who has continued to prove that he is a player in TNA Wrestling. The question is, will they stay behind him? And if they do, does he truly have the skills and talents to defend or justify his undefeated streak that tonight was maintained against Samoa Joe?
Well, I like how they're finally committing to somebody, and Crimson obviously is that guy. He's got a tremendous look. You know what? Seemed a little limited in the ring with Joe. It's almost like Joe was kind of doing the William Regal, Bill Goldberg treatment from what I saw most of the match. But let's just see where this goes. I mean, I hope that the guy that eventually does beat Crimson is someone that earns it as well, and not just, you know, a way to end the streak or to do some old WCW storyline or whatnot. But you know what? Let them develop Crimson. Let him see what he can do. I see a match with Matt Morgan in his future. Eventually, I'm guessing they're going to build him up for a big match at Bound for Glory. That would make a lot of sense. But you know what? They're actually taking someone and putting him in the right direction.
Other matchups on the card included Mickie James versus Angela Law for the Knockouts Championship. Mickie James retaining that title. David Hero, it happens on occasion in professional wrestling, and I never like the word botch, but not a smooth execution on that finishing DDT by Mickie James to end that matchup.
No, that was a little rough. And you know what? You know it's rough when the crowd groans at one time.
Mm-hmm.
But, it happens. And obviously, you know what, at least they committed to go with the finish and be done with it. So I will at least give them that much.
Abyss retains the X Division Championship, defending against both Kendrick and Kazarian. I was surprised, especially going into Destination X next month, where we found out tonight, actually, David Hero, six-sided ring returns, several performers of the past return, and it's all focused on the X Division, what Destination X was in its heyday. But going into Destination X, I'm both surprised and intrigued with it being focused on the X Division and a non-X Division competitor currently holding the title. I think that there's some story opportunity there leading into Destination X and creating that glorious moment potentially coming out of Destination X.
But the question, how is that going to affect our draft, our teams? Do we have any X Division guys?
Well, since my team is the most well-rounded team, I've got AJ Styles.
Okay. Yeah, I don't. Who was originally drafted by me? So yeah, I don't really care because I have no one that's going to get me points.
Mm-hmm.
So
yep.
I'll let you and Kaz handle that pay-per-view. Be the booker.
Matt Morgan versus Scott Steiner, the recently picked up Matt Morgan by Team Mighty Mouse Club. Matt Morgan gets the win.
Really?
Yeah, Mighty Mouse Club.
But okay, what does Mighty Mouse always say? Here I come to save the day. And that's what happened tonight. Matt Morgan kicked things off. Tremendous job by Matt Morgan. I'm very, very pleased as to how he helped Super Friends tonight. You can hate all you want, but the fact of the matter is this. I now have 3 world champions on my roster.
You ever, oh yeah, that's right, because I remember the day we were going to the studio for the draft episode, you wanted to take a detour, and you made the driver Virgil take a detour. We had to go down Easy Street and turn right on Cena Avenue and left on Orton Boulevard.
Yeah, absolutely, and of course that was after we were on Anderson Expressway. It's okay, it'll be fine.
The British Invasion versus Gun Money. We thought maybe there would be a little dissension. However, there was a little between Alex Shelley and James Storm, nothing really that you wouldn't have expected and nothing that led to anything else. Gun Money able to retain the tag team titles for TNA Wrestling in the opening contest against British Invasion, and bang, did Doug Williams take a beating.
You know what? That was a really solid match. I thought all 4 guys did really well. I'm not too sure if they had a whole lot of warm-up matches at house shows or whatnot, but you know what? It was entertaining. It was a good, solid World Tag Team title match.
The pay-per-view, TNA Slammiversary. A lot of people saying that this was a solid pay-per-view, if not one of the best of the year. Now, I question how many people were actually watching this pay-per-view, though, David, because there was a little bit of a basketball game on tonight as well. And even question as far as how many people were watching it, how many people ordered it and paid $35 or $45. But be that as it may, David Hero, in your opinion, was tonight's TNA Slammiversary pay-per-view worth the price of pay-per-view admission?
Oh, absolutely. It was also worth a hell of a lot of points for me, too. Yeah, there's no question about it. Slammiversary was worth the $35.
David Hero, we'll hear from you again tomorrow night after the WWE All-Star Special on the USA Network.
3 hours of Del Rio, Cena, and Orton. Huh.
And The Miz.
Oh, that's right, yeah. See, look at all those four studs for me tomorrow night.
We've heard enough about you tonight. David Hero, thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you again tomorrow. We're going to move on and start taking your phone calls here on the post show. Again, the number, if you haven't dialed in already, is 347-996-5278. Got about 12 minutes of show left here. We're going to be taking your phone calls for the balance of the program. Again, the number 347-996-5278. And for those of you asking, yes, indeed, we did open up the PWR Fantasy Draft to all of you to join. You can do so for the next week. It starts at WWE Capital Punishment. So you can join and submit your roster at pwrshow.com right now and get in on the ground floor of the fan version of the Pro Wrestling Report Draft Season 1.
Tired of all the lies, rumors, and assumptions in wrestling news? So are we. Join us each week for the Pro Wrestling Report on ESPN Radio for the latest news and views on pro wrestling. Visit us at pwrshow.com to check the latest schedule.
And we will be back on 540 ESPN this Thursday night, a very special Thursday night edition of the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN. Will be on right after TNA Impact this week, so be sure to tune in for that. And remember, no matter what our ESPN schedule is each and every Monday night, we will be live on Blog Talk Radio, right here on Blog Talk Radio, where we're pleased to be the #1 sports show for the last several weeks, right here on Blog Talk Radio, thanks to all of you. Let's hop to the phones now. We're going to acknowledge you by your area code and your area code, actually, from where you're calling. So when we mention your area code, please let us know what your name is, where you're calling from, state your comment or question, release the line so that we can move on to the next caller. We want to get to as many callers as we can here in this broadcast. First caller is going to be coming to us from the 318 area code. Caller from the 318 area code, you are live on the post show. What were your thoughts on TNA Slammiversary?
Hey, this is Will from Louisiana. I did enjoy Slammiversary tonight, but I think the match that I enjoyed the most actually was British Invasion versus Gun Money. It was a good open to the show. You saw James Storm and Shelley do some Motor City machine gun moves. The finger poke thing that the Guns do, usually with a drop kick, was hilarious. I loved that match a lot, and congrats to Ken Anderson. He deserves a world title reign, and hopefully he keeps it longer than he did last time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that call from Louisiana. Will down in Louisiana. Let's go to a caller now from the 269 area code. Caller, you're live here on the Pro Wrestling Report post show.
Hi, this is David from Michigan.
Hello, David. What were your thoughts on Slammiversary?
I thought it was good before the two main events. I thought it was a good pay-per-view right then. I love Crimson and Joe. I mean, you got me to... I'm a believer now. I think he was awesome. Pretty good in that match. He was being carried a lot by Joe, but I thought he had some really good spots in.
The key to it, and it looks like we lost you, David. Sorry about that. Sorry, go ahead, David. The key to stars and the key to whether or not somebody may or may not make it is their look and their ability, and do they have that ever so mysterious it? You look at Crimson, and he's got something. Maybe it's it. Maybe it's not. Don't know. But he's got something, and I could see him down the road being one of those people who is the focal point of TNA, Impact Wrestling, whatever it's going to be called at that point. But Crimson is special, and as long as he continues to hone his skills and be the best he can at what he's doing, and the company stays behind him, I think we're going to see big things coming out of this big guy over the course of the next year.
Yeah, I mean, and AJ and Bully Ray or Bubba Ray, whatever you want to call him, I mean, that match is awesome as well. I mean, those two matches, I think, were by far the best two matches on the show.
I would tend to agree with you. Thank you very much, David from Michigan, for calling in. Let's go to our next caller. It's calling from the 859 area code. Caller, you're live on the post show.
Yeah, I'm Aaron. No, the pay-per-view wasn't worth the money. It wasn't. I mean, there were 3 good matches, and that was it. Everything else, the writing was shoddy. I mean, it stunk.
How was the writing shoddy?
Well, take a look at the Angelina and Mickie James match, okay?
I'd rather not.
They could have had Mickie drop the title to Angelina, and then later her and Velvet continue their little feud. Title drops to Velvet. Velvet and ODB, they have their little war for the title, and AJ and Bully Ray, good match, but there's really nothing they can do with these guys right now. I mean, Bully Ray can't be the #1 heel in the company like he should be, and AJ's just like stuck in limbo. I got a feeling he's going to be one of those guys here when the releases start going out here in the next couple of weeks, that he's going to be one of them. I mean, they just don't have any place for him.
AJ Styles, you believe that he may be gone from TNA coming up soon?
Well, I mean, if they don't put the title on him, they've got nothing else to do with him. I mean, there's nobody he can really feud with other than Bully Ray, and that's going to get old shortly. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, let's face it, the writing and booking isn't really there right now. I mean, yeah, hopefully TNA can get it together and be there, but they need somebody in creative that knows what the hell's going on.
Well, and Aaron, they certainly have their challenges, does TNA Wrestling, but I will combat that with there's some problems up in Stamford, Connecticut as well as it pertains to writing. But I think that too many fans place too much emphasis on the stories, the writing, and whatnot, and miss, and I'm not saying this is happening with you, and miss some of the greatness that we get in the ring. We had great wrestling and storytelling from AJ Styles and Bully Ray tonight. We had
absolutely.
great wrestling and storytelling from several matchups tonight, and unfortunately those things are many times overshadowed by what might be viewed as bad booking because things didn't necessarily go the way the fans in general may have wanted them or expected them to go in. So my question for you is this, Aaron. Was the wrestling action worth the price of admission tonight for the pay-per-view?
The wrestling alone, yes. Everything else, no.
So you don't just want wrestling. You want to be entertained. You want stories that make sense. You want entertaining things. You want 20 minutes of a happy birthday rock or this is your life rock segment.
Oh, God, no. God, no, not that. But I grew up in the last days of the territories, you know, AWA, WWF, NWA, WCW.
Absolutely. Back when wrestling was great. Exactly.
I grew up in the golden era, and then, you know, there was the attitude era, which I'm not saying I want, you know, to bring back attitude. I'm used to watching performers, you know, that could captivate me, you know, along with their stories, but they were larger than life, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, back in the golden days, take the WWE, for example. You know, you'd have Hogan and Bundy selling out one show on the East Coast and, say, a Savage and Steamboat selling out a show on the West Coast on the same night.
Right.
I mean, that's how great the talent was of the performers. Now, the performers are basically just like underwear models and strippers. I mean, they don't have the talent for performing or wrestling anymore. It's just watered down.
Yeah, well, Aaron, you and I and many other fans come from a time long gone that we will never see again in professional wrestling. That, a time where people did come up through the territories, a time where tradition mattered, a time where a story could last that long. But today's media environment, including social media, on-demand television, the internet, the business of wrestling has changed. The business of entertainment has changed. The attention span of the audience has changed dramatically enough where wrestling and most other entertainment venues had to change their methods. But thank you so much for that call, Aaron, for participating here in the program. We're still going to be taking your phone calls, ladies and gentlemen. The number 347-996-5278.
Don't forget to follow PWR right here on Blog Talk Radio right now. Be reminded of upcoming episodes and never miss Blog Talk Radio's most popular sports show. Follow PWR now.
Let's go to our next caller. It comes to us from the 336 area code. Caller, you're live here on the Pro Wrestling Report.
Hi, this is Kenneth from North Carolina.
Kenneth, how are you?
I'm doing fine, sir, and you?
Tremendous. What did you think of tonight's Slammiversary pay-per-view?
I think that it was pretty good and awesome. I think the Abyss is going to dominate the X division. I think so. It's kind of like, you know, like and I'm looking forward for the next one, Destination X. And I think this one is going to be, like, really crazy because he just taking over the X division, you know, and he just took out Kendrick and Kaz. But I think that he's really going to be really good.
All right. Well, thank you for that call, Kenneth from North Kakalaki. Let's go to our next caller. Calling from the 631 area code. Caller, you're live here on the Pro Wrestling Report.
Hey, guys. Chris from New York. I wanted to know what you thought about the AJ Styles and Bully Ray ending. I thought, like, the way that it ended with AJ making that big jump and then Bully Ray basically just kicking him into the stage, going through what seemed to be, I don't know, like a cardboard stage. Was there really a strong way to send him out?
Chris from New York, thank you very much for that call. You know, it was surprising, I think, the finish, but I think if you step back and look at it logically, AJ Styles jumped from 20, 25, 30 feet in the air, landed on Bully Ray, probably took more of a brunt than Bully Ray did in that. Bully Ray the smarter, the tougher of the two, at least as far as the story goes, takes advantage of an opportunity, kicks AJ Styles through that wooden platform under the announce table, catches AJ off guard. Bully Ray just got the upper hand. To me, it makes sense. To me, it's believable. To me, it isn't out of the realm of possibility that could have happened. I like the way it ended. I mean, what more did we want from that matchup? Maybe another 20 minutes, another 30 minutes of it. Yeah, but definitely that was not going to happen. I don't think they could have given us much more without diluting what they'd already given us. So I think it was good. I think the finish, while I understand people's questioning, I disagree that it was overbooked or underbooked or whatever else may be as it pertains to that. And I'll say the same thing about the Anderson-Sting match. I think that the Bischoffs, Eric and his kid, hitting the 1, then Eric hitting the 2, then Jackson hitting the 3. Clever. As somebody pointed out on Twitter earlier, we've not seen something like that before. It's almost like that spot where you've seen probably all over the country, especially if you go to independent wrestling shows, where the heel picks up the chair, throws it in, and the heel and the face catches it, and then the ref looks at the face and disqualifies him. Great spot. It's just one of those things where it's like, ha, gotcha. I'm smarter than you. I beat you. So there you go for that anyways, Chris out in New York. We want to thank, remember, if you want to speak, go ahead and interact with the menu on Blog Talk Radio. Raise your hand, if you will, and let us know that you want to talk. Otherwise, we will not take your calls. We have several of you on the phone lines right now, but nobody's indicated that they want to talk. So I want to remind all of you that we will be live on 540 ESPN on Thursday night and live tomorrow night after WWE's All-Star edition of Raw to talk more about professional wrestling. To recap tonight's TNA Slammiversary pay-per-view, a brand new world champion in TNA wrestling in Mr. Anderson, Ken Anderson. Also, a new number 1 contender in Kurt Angle, as Kurt Angle defeated Jeff Jarrett in their final battle tonight on pay-per-view. Bully Ray defeated AJ Styles in our last man standing matchup. Mickie James defeating Angelina Love and retaining the TNA Knockouts Championship. Samoa Joe falls victim to the undefeated Crimson tonight at Slammiversary. Abyss retaining the X Division Championship over Brian Kendrick and Kazarian. Matt Morgan defeats Scott Steiner, and the Gun Money team of James Storm and Alex Shelley defeat the British Invasion to retain the TNA Tag Team Championships. Major news tonight. You can join the PWR Fan Fantasy Draft. All the details available right now on pwrshow.com. Sign up is only for the next week as the event starts during Sunday's WWE Capital Punishment pay-per-view. All the details right now at pwrshow.com. And also an update from the PWR draft between myself and the Mighty Mouse Club, led by David Hero. Hero takes the lead, 670 points to my Nelson family's 610 points. But believe you me, it's only a temporary situation. I've always got a plan, just like Hannibal Smith. I'm going to love it when the plan comes together. Let's go to the phones again. Let's take someone from the 219 area code. Caller, you are live. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Yes, hi, my name's Nicole. I'm from Northwest Indiana.
All right, Nicole, what did you think of TNA's Slammiversary tonight?
It was actually one of their better ones, I have to say. I did enjoy it. I kind of felt sorry for Sting and Mr. Anderson because that poor crowd was so exhausted and dead from right after the AJ match.
Yeah.
I think they should have maybe had the girls match after that last man standing match. So I kind of wish they did that because that poor crowd needed a break after that. Also, I didn't understand the Sting and the referee counts. You know, if I looked at it, Sting should have won that because I believe the ref counted 3. Am I wrong with that?
You are wrong. Here's what happened. And I had to rewatch it 2 or 3 times to catch what happened because I certainly heard and thought I saw 3 counts. Referee's Jackson James. For those of you that don't know, that's Eric Bischoff's son. James makes the 1 count. Eric Bischoff leaps in, makes the 2 count. James then makes what he thought was the 2 count. Sting hears 3 counts as his back was to all this. and decides that or thinks that he has won the matchup. Obviously, he did not. That caused all the confusion that led to the Anderson victory and the Anderson winning of the TNA championship. I think it was very well done by TNA. Some people are saying, again, blah, 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 overbooked, blah, blah, blah. They had to overdo it, and they went too far. Well, you know what? This was clever. It was something we never seen before. And, again, it was innovative, and you don't see much innovation in pro wrestling nowadays.
Yeah, that is correct. All right, you have a great night, Damian.
Nicole, thank you so much for calling in and being a part of the post show here on Blog Talk Radio.
Don't forget to follow PWR right here on Blog Talk Radio right now. Be reminded of upcoming episodes and never miss Blog Talk Radio's most popular sports show. Follow PWR now. Missed an episode on the Pro Wrestling Report? Thanks, pal. Subscribe to the show on iTunes and take the show with you wherever you go, even in the bathroom.
Well, that was TNA Slammiversary tonight on pay-per-view. Seems overwhelmingly a lot of people enjoyed the second half of the pay-per-view much more than they did the first half, but at the same time, a lot of people saying it was a good pay-per-view overall. I would tend to agree. It held my interest all the way through the show, and I thought that two matches actually really stood out as far as their execution and their meaning and their build. 3 matches, by the way. I'll go with what I was originally going to say, which are the final 3 matchups. Bully Ray and AJ Styles, and who would have thought I'd be sitting here saying Bully Ray is in one of the top matchups on a pay-per-view, but he was tonight against AJ Styles, an excellent last man standing matchup, and also the TNA World Heavyweight Championship matchup featuring Ken Anderson going up against Sting, a good build, a good way of getting there, and I think a good execution in the final delivery. And now people will stop whining about the fact that TNA or Impact Wrestling had a 52-year-old champion, and nobody gave Sting any credit tonight for wrestling without the T-shirt. Everybody likes to pick on the fact that he wrestles with the T-shirt, but nobody, of course, had to say anything good about the fact that he came out and brought it tonight. As David Hero said earlier, had one of his best matches we've seen in a while, did Sting, but a brand new TNA World Heavyweight Champion in Ken Anderson. And the other matchup I thought really delivered tonight was Kurt Angle versus Jeff Jarrett. Again, a match that meant something, a match that had pre-build, a match that had story, and a match that you felt like you got what you wanted with Jeff Jarrett tapping out to Kurt Angle in that matchup. That was TNA Slammiversary, and again, we're going to be taking your calls again about TNA, about WWE's All-Star edition of Raw tomorrow night. For David Hero, this is Damian Nelson saying thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in just about 24 hours again right here on the Pro Wrestling Report on Blog Talk Radio.
This is the Pro Wrestling Report. Informative, entertaining, real. Stop stalking your ex and be our friend on Facebook and join the tremendous worldwide discussion. Facebook.com/Pro Wrestling